at a solution or an action in a specific area. The committee were delighted with the applicants. You guys got loads of them, and it was really hard to pick. But in the end, they chose 6 winners, and the 6 winners were chosen because they were most passionate, inspiring, and committed to the ideas that they had submitted. Now, I was really fortunate that I got to work with these amazing 6 women to develop the 3-minute soapbox pitches that you're going to hear next. And so I'm going to pull them up without any more fuss. Do we want them all on stage? I think. So can I get Louise, Holly, Lisa, Laura, Rebecca, and Katie to come on up? So first up we have Rebecca Purchase.
Hi everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. So I'm here today to talk about something that's really quite close to my heart, and it's just about how we as safety professionals need to act with integrity. Imagine a business where staff are comfortable to report incidents. Imagine a business that truly wants staff to report those incidents. One that really does care about its employees, and not one that's just interested in finding a blame when something happens. One that will put the cards on the table and admit that they went wrong and put in a genuine solution to fix it. I know that these companies exist because I'm lucky enough to work for one at the moment, and that's one that shares my mindset and value of integrity. So I want to take you back to a point in my career where I wasn't working for a team like this, where there were serious incidents and documents were falsified, and I myself was asked to change reports and investigations just to avoid prosecution. The effect that behaviour had, that intrinsic value or lack of value had on the staff and myself was absolutely huge. The safety team and management just weren't trusted, and they still aren't in that company. And as long as those people are there, the culture is not going to be able to be changed. Integrity is so important in what we do as health and safety professionals, and I honestly believe that we need to be the ones that stand up now and push back. If we don't, we're always going to be asked by companies to work in this way and make these changes and these decisions. So I did make a stand, and believe me, it was not easy to stand up to people that were paying my wages, but also people that were more qualified in health and safety than I was. So I had to call them out on it. Nothing changed within that company due to me doing that, so I had to kind of take a deep breath and I decided to walk away. And I'm more confident in that decision every single day. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to do anything that dramatic, but if you take anything away from what I've said today, please just think about how your company and the people around you react and behave when something goes wrong, and think about whether they're acting with integrity. And if not, just consider your reaction to that and to their behaviour, and please be the change that we need in this industry, and it's never wrong to do the right thing. Thank you.
Next up we have Louise Taggart.
I believe the lives of all those who die because of work should be counted, as that is how they will be made to count. My wee brother's death, it does count, because it was reportable under Red Order to the HSE. Had Michael died this past reported year, he'd have been among 137 people who died at work. Right? Wrong. fatality statistic from the HSE is the one most often quoted, yes, but it doesn't even begin to tell the whole story. It doesn't count firefighter, husband and father of two small boys, Lee Bond, who took his own life after a colleague had died while tackling a blaze. Tormented by work pressures and thoughts of what he could have done differently to prevent that tragedy. Nor does it count Dr. Lauren Connolly, who crashed when driving home exhausted after another inhumane junior doctor shift. Or Erin McQuaid and her grandparents, among the 6 who died in the Glasgow Bin lorry crash. It also doesn't count Ailey Cairns, a cyclist, crushed under the wheels of a lorry, and like her ghost bike, she's invisible in those HSE figures. As are all those who died in offshore Super Puma helicopter disaster. Or Peter Clunas, who died just last week when his helicopter ditched while working on a fish farm. Or the 2 fishermen who died and whose bodies were recently raised in their boat in Nancy Glen. The headline HSE figure, it also doesn't count those who die because of work. Julie Roberts, she lost both her dad and her uncle within a matter of weeks of one another. And she's doing her damnedest to make sure that mesothelioma matters. But she needs our help. And who among you wants to tell Kayla Brewer's partner and young son that you're not counting her death? She just finished the school run when a pallet of bricks crashed down on top of her. That 137 people should leave for work and never make it home is awful enough in itself. But we do a disservice to all work-bereaved families when we use it as an annual work-related death toll. The whole story, it counts work-related suicides and road traffic deaths. It includes deaths investigated by the Air and Marine Accident Investigation branches and the Office of the Rail Regulator. It identifies all deaths caused by work-related illness, and it captures members of the public who die as a result of work-related health and safety failures, including the 72 souls who perished at Grenfell. When all of these lost lives are made to count, 137 is not an annual work-related death toll. It's more like a daily one. 1,500 loved ones who die annually in work-related incidents, and a further 50,000 who die as a result of work-related illness. So if from today we all tell the whole story, we'll better see root causes identified, lessons learned and implemented, preventative enforcement prioritised, and together we'll help put a stop to so many chapters ending in tragedy, and instead offer an altogether more uplifting story. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up we have Holly Ridley.
Raise your hand if you've ever made a mistake at work. Can you remember one specific mistake where you were personally held accountable? Can you imagine what it must feel like to have your mistakes scrutinised, have someone tell you what you should have done, and then for it to be publicised to the wider organisation? It is widely documented that a large proportion of accidents are due to human error. We find the focus of attention is then on the individuals close to the sharp end. Behaviours can become criminalised with the need to seek a root cause. We identify things such as a lack of risk perception or a lapse in concentration. Isn't there too much emphasis on human error? After all, it's us that has to draw the line between what's acceptable and unacceptable. But couldn't we have done the same in their situation? Frontline staff have little authority in the situations they find themselves in. We know we can't completely eradicate human error, and we know there's a limit to what behavioural training can achieve. So instead of first digging deep into the individual actions, we need to look at the organisation more widely to to look at the performance influencing factors such as the organisation itself, the person and the job. For example, the design, the usefulness of procedures and the existence of goal conflicts and production pressures. I quote James Reason, he's famous for his Swiss cheese model. Workplaces and organisations are easier to manage than the minds of individual workers. You cannot change the human condition, but you can change the conditions under which people work. So put quite simply, create and evolve our systems with humans in mind to reduce the opportunity for human error. In turn, will reduce accidents. Finally, when looking for a picture to depict my point perfectly, I found the picture I was looking for. And it was Homer Simpson. Everybody knows he makes mistakes. He's sitting there looking at hundreds of buttons all day long. You know, who wouldn't get bored and press the wrong button? I would. But it had a little added bonus, and if anybody's ever done this, you'll know what I mean. The system has made it all too easy for human error. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Lisa Chambers.
So I work for Biffa, most dangerous industry in the world, in the countryside, and it's quite scary. So we've just gone through a massive course change that we've decided to get the drivers, everybody out there to start reporting to near misses. And we've done really, really well. We've got some really good. That's yours. There we go. So within the year, within Biffa, we had 60,000 near misses reported. So I broke it down to IMC, and we had 36,000. And the reason that I broke it down to IMC was when I was going through doing my weekly report, there was one there that said in 2027, when I retire, this job will be just as dangerous. And I couldn't quite understand why anybody hadn't picked this up. So when I went to speak to the depot and asked them what have we done about this, they said, well, we're really busy, you know, 36,000 reports last year. So I decided to look at the North figures. We had 11,000 in the North in a year. In that particular region, we have 1,144. So, I started to ask myself, how does this guy feel? We've worked it down now to 1,144. So a year's reporting in a region, I took it right down by business units. We had 190 in a year. You look at it by week, that's 3.5. How do I go back to a man that reported that in 2027 this job will never change when that depot actually only has 3.5 a week? So who do we hold accountable to get this across to the driver that we've done? Not quite sure if you're familiar, this is the triangle. So when you look at this, ConocoPhillips did some work and found that for every 300,000 reported accidents you will have a fatality. Now that tells me, working for the biggest company in the country for fatalities, we have 3 years. 3 years, we will have another fatality if we don't get a grip of what we do. So we've got the culture at the bottom, we've got the culture at the top, but the middleman we now need to get working. So what we need to do is improve our communications, protect the people, we can defend the business. Can't see that one. Behaviour will change. So we've got the drivers changing, we've got people on the floor, we've got machinery operators changing the way that they're doing their jobs. They're not taking shortcuts. When they see shortcuts, they're eliminating them. They are reporting them to us. Feedback will improve. The longer I stand there and I ask them day after day, what is your feedback? This has become my mission in life now. I look at every single hazard and near miss reported within the INC division. I make sure that the feedback is improved for the drivers. If we don't feedback to the drivers are never going to Thank you very much.
Just before I invite up the second to last of our speakers, just want to let you all know that the session is going to run a few minutes over, but I tell you that it's well worth staying around. So, next we have Laurent.
So I'm actually going to start with a bit of a confession today. I don't know if we've got my slides coming up. Yeah. So I think considering the title of my talk, the confession might be a bit of a surprise. So I am a feminist. I'm a pretty proud and unapologetic feminist at that, and I'm definitely not alone. So one of the things I'm obviously incredibly passionate about is that men and women should have equal opportunities, whether that's in the workplace or outside of the workplace. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? It's really, really important to me that everyone is seen as a person as a whole, you know, for their values, for their skill sets, and not their sex or their sexuality or their skin colour. So I heard this statistic recently, and it was from a Hewlett-Packard internal report that said when it comes to job applications, men will apply for things typically if they hit 60% of the required criteria, whereas a woman needs to hit 100% of the criteria to even think about applying. And when you combine that with what I think is quite a well-known fact, that currently there are more CEOs called David than female CEOs in the FTSE 100, you know, I think you can see we've got a bit of a problem here. So I think the problem is perception. Whether that is the perception of women in the workplace or whether it is internal perceptions of ourselves. But that perception is definitely a problem. So this is what I mean by women create their own glass ceiling. We have enough limitations in the day-to-day without putting them on ourselves. So what do we do about it? You are probably going to be pleased to know I haven't got time to go into all the reasons why there are limitations. All I want to do really is just give you a couple of tips. And these aren't just for women, these are for anyone that struggles with their career or confidence or whatever that is. Just to help you push yourself forward and get to where you want to be. So, tip number one. You need to face your fear. What's the absolute worst thing that could happen? So I think when you see that dream job advertised and you read through the specification, you start to talk yourself out of it. And we've all done this. You look at it and you go, oh, well, I haven't got that, and I haven't got that. And I know I've definitely done it. When I joined HSE, I had no experience whatsoever. I just knew I wanted to do recruitment. My husband talked me into applying for the job. The internal recruiter talked me into turning up for the interview that he booked for me, and then I talked myself into actually accepting it. And yeah, we've all done this, and I think it again boils down to your perception of yourself. It definitely all boils down to fear. You know, are they going to laugh me out the door? Are they going to think that I'm wasting their time? Again, when I got the offer for the role here, I remember saying to my husband, I've completely blagged that interview process. I've got no idea how to do recruitment. You know, how on earth have they offered it to me? And he said, if you can blag 5 interviews, you can do sales. So that's that story for you. Sorry, boss. But on a serious note, what is the worst thing that can happen? You apply for the job, you don't get the job. You already don't have the job. So, tip number 2. You need to ask for what you want. And I think this is something we're all really, really guilty of. So, a recent BBC survey found that only 32% of women would be comfortable asking for a pay rise or a promotion, compared to 51% of men. So that's quite a big difference there. And this for me comes back to what Marion said about confidence being related to being prepared. That's a huge thing. If you're prepared for a situation, you're more likely to take that chance. So you need to know why you're good at your job. What is it that makes you stand out? What is it that makes you an asset to that company? Make a list, write it down, sit with your line manager and tell him, this is what I do. This is why I'm great at it, and as a result, I deserve that promotion. Now, he might not give it to you straight away, but what he could do is give you at least some objectives, and you can work towards them to get the promotion eventually. So ask for what you want. And then the final tip is you have to have a career plan. That is just so important. So do you know where you want to be in 5 years? Do you know where you want to be in 10 years, 15? And then how does that affect every single day building up to that point? So again, when I joined, I had no experience. I was 22, and I knew I wanted to be a partner by the time I was 30. So what I did is I looked at every single promotion I needed, and there was 8 to get me to that point. So 1 a year, that's the plan. So every year at the start of the year, I would sit down with the boss, here's the business plan for the year, what do I have to do to get that promotion by the end of the year, and then work towards it. It's really sort of simple as that. So the message I just want everyone to take home today is that if we truly want, as women or minority groups or individuals, to be represented and to represent at the senior level, then we need to be visible, and you have to take chances. So apply for the job, ask for the promotion, really push yourself forward. And I know my boss is in the audience, so Chris, we need to sit down about that pay rise. Thank you very much.
I used to think that the rules didn't apply to me. I didn't think twice about nipping the other side of the unfixed barrier because, let's face it, it was the quicker and shorter route and everybody was doing it. So I thought it would be fine. But what I didn't think about was why. Why were those barriers there in the first place? And actually, were there some possible consequences from my actions? Scenarios similar to these happen day in and day out. But as safety professionals, do we ask why? Or do we jump straight in with issuing disciplinary action because the rules were broken? Do we, as safety professionals, explain why? Because generally people are more likely to do something if they know why they're doing it. And also if we explain what the potential consequences are if they don't do it. Do we, as safety professionals, ever consider that the rules may need to be updated and reviewed? Because if there hadn't have been a barrier there that day, and it had been a crossing point, then I, along with so many people before me, wouldn't have broken any rules that day. An example of what I mean, on the development where I live, there's evidence of heavy foot traffic across a piece of grass which leads to the large pond area. Now this is the much shorter and quicker route to the pond, and if there are no foreseeable risks involved, then why don't we make this the route? Why don't we work with people? Because people are less likely to deviate away from something if they're committed to doing it in the first place. Now, as a safety professional, I now fully understand why there are rules, and unfortunately, I have seen what can happen if these rules are broken. But I never assume that people break rules because they can. Instead, I challenge myself and others on a regular basis with why. And I encourage you all to do the same, because I'm sure that you'll be surprised at some of the responses you receive, because they're not always what we expect, and they're certainly not what we assume. If somebody had taken the time to explain to me why those barriers have been there, and what the potential consequences of breaking the rules could be, then just maybe I would have thought twice. People do things for a reason, so let's give them good reason. Let's ask and explain why, and together we can make a difference to safety behaviour, culture and its perception.